It begins in the mouth. Your molars generate up to 200 pounds per square inch of bite force. The goal is precise: reduce food particles to a size that maximizes surface area for the chemical attack that follows. Simultaneously, 3 pairs of salivary glands flood your mouth with a precisely engineered biological fluid, not just water. Saliva contains amylase, an enzyme that begins breaking down starch the instant food makes contact before you swallow, before stomach acid is involved. Saliva also contains lipase for early fat digestion, lysozyme to kill incoming bacteria, and mucins that bind the chewed particles into a smooth, lubricated mass called a bolus. You swallow. And here is the moment that requires extraordinary coordination. A flap of cartilage called the epiglottis snaps shut over your windpipe. The upper esophageal sphincter opens. This sequence involves over 30 muscles and 5 cranial nerves, all firing in under 1 second. Every swallow, approximately 1,000 times per day. If the sequencing fails even once, the bolus enters your airway instead of your esophagus. You choke. The esophagus then moves the bolus not by gravity, but by peristalsis, coordinated muscular waves that squeeze and propel the food downward with enough pressure that digestion works completely normally in 0 gravity. Astronauts digest food in orbit by the same mechanism. 4 to 8 seconds later, the lower esophageal sphincter opens. The stomach is waiting. It begins in the mouth. Your molars generate up to 200 pounds per square inch of bite force. The goal is precise: reduce food particles to a size that maximizes surface area for the chemical attack that follows. Simultaneously, 3 pairs of salivary glands flood your mouth with a precisely engineered biological fluid, not just water. Saliva contains amylase, an enzyme that begins breaking down starch the instant food makes contact before you swallow, before stomach acid is involved. Saliva also contains lipase for early fat digestion, lysozyme to kill incoming bacteria, and mucins that bind the chewed particles into a smooth, lubricated mass called a bolus. You swallow. And here is the moment that requires extraordinary coordination. A flap of cartilage called the epiglottis snaps shut over your windpipe. The upper esophageal sphincter opens. This sequence involves over 30 muscles and 5 cranial nerves, all firing in under 1 second. Every swallow, approximately 1,000 times per day. If the sequencing fails even once, the bolus enters your airway instead of your esophagus. You choke. The esophagus then moves the bolus not by gravity, but by peristalsis, coordinated muscular waves that squeeze and propel the food downward with enough pressure that digestion works completely normally in 0 gravity. Astronauts digest food in orbit by the same mechanism. 4 to 8 seconds later, the lower esophageal sphincter opens. The stomach is waiting. The stomach is not a passive container. It is the most mechanically violent organ in the human body. An empty stomach holds approximately 75 milliliters, roughly the size of an espresso cup. When a large meal arrives, the walls unfold through receptive relaxation and expand to over 1 liter, in some individuals up to 4 liters. 2 simultaneous attacks begin. The mechanical attack. 3 layers of stomach muscle contract in coordinated waves every 15 to 20 seconds. The food is not stirred, it is churned, compressed, and sheared against the stomach walls with enormous force. The chemical attack. Parietal cells in the stomach wall secrete hydrochloric acid, dropping the environment to a pH of 1.5, the acidity of battery acid, strong enough to kill virtually every pathogen that arrived with the food. Simultaneously, chief cells secrete pepsinogen, which the acid activates into pepsin, an enzyme that begins demolishing protein molecules. Now, the question the biology must answer: if stomach acid is strong enough to dissolve metal, why does it not dissolve the stomach itself? Because mucus cells line every surface of the gastric wall. They secrete a bicarbonate-rich alkaline layer approximately 1 millimeter thick. This layer maintains a pH of nearly 7 directly at the stomach wall surface, while the interior sits at pH 1.5, a chemical gradient of nearly 6 units across 1 single millimeter, one of the most extreme chemical gradients in biology. When this layer fails from NSAID damage, H. pylori infection, or chronic stress, the acid reaches the wall directly. A gastric ulcer forms. The stomach begins digesting itself. After 2 to 4 hours of this assault, food has been converted to chyme, a highly acidic semi-liquid mixture. The pyloric sphincter opens in controlled pulses, releasing it into the extraction zone. The small intestine, 20 feet long, 6 meters, where 90% of all nutrient absorption in the human body happens. The challenge is surface area. Nutrients can only be absorbed where the intestinal wall makes contact with digested contents. The small intestine solves this across 3 simultaneous levels of structural magnification. First, circular folds called plicae circulares multiply the surface area by a factor of 3. Each fold is covered in finger-like projections called villi, multiplying surface area by a further factor of 10. The surface of each villus is itself covered in microscopic projections called microvilli, forming the brush border, multiplying surface area by a further factor of 20. The combined result is approximately 32 square meters of absorptive surface, the size of a studio apartment folded inside your abdomen. But the small intestine cannot work until the acid problem is solved. Chyme arriving from the stomach is at pH 1.5. The enzymes of the small intestine are destroyed by acid. They require a neutral environment to function. 2 organs intervene simultaneously. The pancreas floods the first section of the small intestine with bicarbonate solution, neutralizing the stomach acid within minutes. It also delivers a full enzyme cocktail: amylase for carbohydrates, lipase for fats, and trypsin and chymotrypsin for proteins. The liver releases bile, stored in the gallbladder, which emulsifies fat globules into microscopic droplets, dramatically increasing the surface area available for lipase to attack. Now the extraction runs at full capacity. Amino acids from protein, simple sugars from carbohydrates, fatty acids and glycerol from fats, vitamins, minerals, all crossing the brush border and entering your bloodstream, fueling every cell in your body. What the small intestine cannot extract passes into the large intestine, the colon. 5 feet long, 1.5 meters, and far more intelligent than most people realize. The function most people know is water reabsorption. The liquid chyme entering the colon contains 1 to 2 liters of water. The colon recovers 90% of it, converting liquid waste into solid stool over 12 to 48 hours of transit. But the second function is what most people have never been told. Inside your colon live approximately 38 trillion bacteria, more bacterial cells than there are human cells in your entire body. This is your gut microbiome, and it is not a passenger. It is an active biological participant. Dietary fiber that your own digestive enzymes cannot break down, your gut bacteria can. They ferment this fiber through anaerobic metabolism, producing short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, propionate, and acetate. Butyrate is the primary fuel source for colonocytes, the cells lining your colon wall. Without adequate butyrate, those cells begin to die. The colon wall weakens. Permeability increases. Bacterial products leak into the bloodstream and trigger systemic inflammation. Your gut bacteria also synthesize vitamin K2, certain B vitamins, and approximately 95% of your body's total serotonin production. Your gut is not just digesting food, it is manufacturing neurochemistry. The gut contains over 500 million neurons, more than the spinal cord. Scientists call this the enteric nervous system, your second brain, capable of functioning entirely independently of the central nervous system. As fermentation completes and water is absorbed, waste solidifies. It travels through the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and the sigmoid colon, arriving finally in the rectum, a muscular storage chamber. Stretch receptors in the rectal wall detect increasing pressure and send a signal to the brain. Two sphincters control the exit. The internal anal sphincter, an involuntary smooth muscle, relaxes automatically in response to rectal pressure. The external anal sphincter, a voluntary striated muscle, remains under your conscious control. You decide when. But the machine does not stop here. Between meals, during the fasting state, the gastrointestinal tract activates a housekeeping program called the migrating motor complex, a sweeping wave of electrical and mechanical activity that travels the full length of the small intestine every 90 to 120 minutes, pushing residual bacteria, debris, and dead cells forward into the colon.
It is your gut cleaning itself.
This is what your stomach growling actually is, not hunger. The migrating motor complex in operation. Your gut cleaning itself between meals. Eating too frequently before this cycle completes interrupts the cleaning program. Residual bacteria remain in the small intestine. This contributes to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, a condition now estimated to affect up to 15% of the general population. The machine runs best when it is given time to rest. From first bite to final exit, 24 to 72 hours, 1 ton of processing per year, 11 organs, 38 trillion microbial collaborators, all running silently, all running automatically, all running right now inside you. Consider what the biology just revealed. The cephalic phase activating your entire digestive system before food arrives. 30 muscles and 5 cranial nerves firing in sequence for a single swallow. Battery acid strength hydrochloric acid held 1 millimeter from a wall it would dissolve by a bicarbonate buffer layer. 32 square meters of absorptive surface folded into 6 meters of intestine. 38 trillion bacteria manufacturing your serotonin. A second brain containing more neurons than your entire spinal cord. And a 90-minute autonomous cleaning cycle that most people interrupt 3 times a day without knowing it exists. This is not a plumbing system. This is the most sophisticated chemical processing network on Earth, running inside every human body simultaneously, requiring 0 maintenance instructions, 0 user input. Most people treat it like a garbage disposal. You now know what it actually is. That is what Decoded exists to tell you. If this video gave you something that no biology class ever did, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.